Does anyone have a really pressing question that they really have to get out before we end the evening? Oh, 3 of you. Okay, the fellow in the back was first. So.
Just wondering, do we know what were the driving forces behind the evolution of the intensity of human expression towards one end of the spectrum to another?
So the question is, do we really know what the driving forces were behind this amazing change in brain size and the social brain?
Not yet, but we've taken the first steps to finding out. So I showed you a slide where the people with the schizophrenia risk allele had higher verbal ability. We need to look in normal populations. We need to have a much better idea of what are the schizophrenia risk alleles, what are the autism risk alleles, what sort of important interactions are there, and in normal populations, what sort of cognitive abilities do those alleles influence. And then we can take that variation, and using the variation in the human genome, we can look and say, well, have those alleles been subject to selection in human history? And that can, in principle, tell us something about the strength of selection on particular alleles for particular phenotypes. So the answer is we've taken a very few steps towards that direction, but it will be possible to get the data.
Okay, so 2 more. Madam in the front here, yes.
Neanderthals have larger brains than humans.
Neanderthals have larger brains than humans, we learned last week.
Can you explain that?
What's going on? And they didn't have clothes.
Well, my understanding is that they were also bigger than us as well in terms of absolute size, and they certainly had very absolute size is very important for brains, and there are correlations between say absolute brain size and IQ in humans. They're not very strong at all. They're like 0.2 or whatever, but there are correlations there. So how intelligent were Neanderthal? Well, once Svante Pääbo has finished sequencing their genome, we can start to have a look at important genes beyond FOXP2 that people have looked at. And then one does also have to bear in mind that Neanderthals went extinct, and there's a lot of people who have ideas related to modern humans having something potentially to do with that. Because if you look at the history of modern humans, it is the history of intergroup competition to a considerable extent. And humans tend to treat other primate species very, very badly. We kill them, we eat them, they don't do well. So that's certainly consistent with that idea. But the only way we're going to know is through looking at the genetic evidence for Neanderthals that we have. I'll bet they were pretty smart, but we were sneakier.
So that came up last week when the first draft of the Neanderthal genome was presented at the meeting that Mark had been to, I think, or no, it came out the same day. So, but that's just a draft, so we won't be able to get at those genes for a few months, years yet. And there was one last question from a gentleman in the middle here, I thought. Yes? Is that you?
I'm wondering how much of the spectrum are we looking to treat? Because would this reduce the variation and thus impede our evolutionary development?
The question was, given if this is true, and we start thinking about this as a continuum, how much of it do we treat? I.e., what is normal? Is that the right way of representing that question?
That's a really, really hard question, and it certainly is a moral question, because the people with these sort of disabilities, well, how much should they be involved in the decision? How much should their caregivers be involved? If all of this work has taught me anything, it's that we need to think very carefully about cognitive diversity and what is normality, because it does grade continuously into these extremes, and there is nowhere that you can draw any sort of clean line and say this person has a disorder, this person doesn't have a disorder. There is nothing that science can help you with in terms of that sort of distinction. Now, it's a little different with something like Fragile X, where you have a very specific and clear-cut major disability that you can treat and that you can treat from an early age. Okay, and there I think it's, one can make a good case. It's other cases where the judgment just it really has to come from the family, because it's something that happens in families, and the family has to decide what is best for their family members if they're unable to do so.
So I hope you will agree with me that we have been witness to very interesting, important, and I hope you also understand very novel talk on Darwin and your brain. Please help me in thanking Professor Crespi.